What is up, ladies and gentlemen? NoZoupForYou here, and this is the first edition of Mail Buoy. The premise is simple. You send me your burning questions, and I answer them. Doesn't get much easier than that. To the lucky individuals whose questions I select, I'll also give you a CCT container that might contain a ship like Kutuzov. Also in these videos, I'm going to try and feature gameplay from other players out there. And in this particular game, we have Jarkov117 with some wonderful Scharnhorst gameplay. He really did have a wonderful game, so with that being said, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's dive into the mail. First off, from Scrag0416, he states you should call it the Mail Buoy, as it was a way to mess with the new people on board. We would get them all dressed up with safety equipment and have them report to the CO that the Mail Buoy watch was stationed. Well, Scrag, I decided to go along with Mail Buoy. I like that idea, so here we are. The mailbag is Mail Buoy. And thank you for your service, by the way. His question is, will we ever see Japanese hybrid ships, battleships, or cruisers that had seaplanes on their sterns that replace their guns? Or will the Tone cruiser ever make it to Japanese CA line? That's a good question right there, and I really don't think we're going to see any of those in the near future. Aircraft carriers are having little problems as they are, but the biggest reason to that is just the controls. Controls for carriers have changed significantly, and I think if we had kept the old RTS style of aircraft carriers, we might have been able to swing it so that you could control the planes in an RTS setting and then go right back to your ship and control it like a regular ship. But we don't really have that anymore, and in the current carriers we have, you really can't even control them that well. You have to use the waypoint system, which I absolutely hate. So because of that, I don't think we're going to see them anytime soon, and I think the last time Tone was in the game, it actually crashed the game, I think when Super Nico played it, which was kind of funny, so I don't see them anytime soon. Maybe one day, but not in the near future. Thank you for that question, Scrag. Moving on, Big Schmid says, Wargaming removed a lot of CVs in patch 8.0. With the CV rework being a tug-of-war between overpowered CVs and overpowered AA right now, what roles could alternative CV lines fill in the future, and how far out do we want those lines to be? Well, I think the how far out part's pretty easy. I think they shouldn't be in the game relatively soon. I think we need to iron out the issues, the kinks, and the wrinkles we have in the game right now. We're getting there. We're getting there with every single hot patch. We get just a little bit closer. Wargaming's got the artillery in the air. They're shifting their fire. They're getting closer to that mark, and at some point they're going to bracket the fire and just absolutely destroy the target. So we're getting there slowly. They've also said that they are going to reintroduce the aircraft carriers back into the game, so it's not even tiered anymore. So in the future, we'll get there again where we have a tier 5 and a 6 and a 7 and an 8 and a 9 and a 10, and not just the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Well, there's no 2 in there, but we'll get there. We'll get there. As far as alternative roles, I think they could definitely do that. You know, I'd love to see USN CVs have AP bombs. I would love to differentiate the various carriers out there and give them each their own, for lack of a better word, gimmick. And I know we really don't like that word. Gimmick's not one of those words we really like to use, but every line does need a gimmick to kind of separate itself from the others. You know, Graf Zeppelin kind of has that quote-unquote gimmick. Enterprise has AP bombs. I don't know why you just don't give it to the USN line in general, because the torpedoes for USN airplanes are very weak as it is, so I definitely think we could further differentiate the ships from each other, and definitely down the line, I hope that's something Wargaming will do. Hugh Trung Tran says, why did Wargaming not adjust captain skills when the rework rolled out? There are many skills that were affected by the new meta, and it is bothersome to test whether the old list is still applicable for each and every surface ship. I won't disagree with you on that, Mr. Tran. I will not. But I will say that Wargaming did give a respec for free, so you could tinker around with things. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Yeah, it takes a little while to figure out what works, but it's kind of nice being able to play one round, see if it works, respec for free instead of being stuck with something. I'll also say a lot of the captain skills were reworked, and if you notice, there's a ton of new aircraft skills out there. I want to say off the top of my head, at least 6 are specific for CVs only, which I won't say it's ridiculous, but I will say it's approaching too many. And I would love to see them kind of make things a little easier. Honestly, I think they could really pare back the amount of captain skills out there, and this kind of bleeds into another question that someone else out there has. Vader Grenader says, do you foresee captain skills going beyond 19 points? It would seem to me that as more lines are added with more niche specialties, it may be something to consider. And I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to say I kind of miss the simplicity of having only 15 points. Really, right now, 19 points is a lot. And I almost think that you could separate the skills based upon the ship type. I really like the direction that Legends is going with their captain skills. You have 2 distinct paths you can take. You either choose something that provides offense, or you choose something that provides defense. It's really, really simplified, if you haven't seen it yet. It doesn't offer quite as much variety as this does, but you've got a lot of skills right here, and there's a lot to think about. And I really think at this point, a lot of these skills can probably be combined, especially some of the aircraft carrier skills that they've introduced into the game. So, will we go beyond 19 points? No, I definitely don't think so. I think Wargaming likes it the way it is, and I think they like forcing a player to choose now whether they want to be solely anti-aircraft, solely secondary, solely zombie mode with the heal. I don't think they'll go beyond that 19 points. And again, personally, I'd like to see fewer points than that because there's a lot of choices right now as it is, and sometimes simplicity is a little better, and it might force players to take one of those paths even more pronounced. The next 2 questions are very similar to each other, so I'm going to kind of combine them. In5Bar asks, do you think World of Warships will survive beyond the 5-year limit where most online games die? And Wolf48 says, Quick Baby recently did a state of World of Tanks health not too far back, and came to the conclusion from his research the World of Tanks player base was declining. What do you think the player base population is doing at the moment for WoWs? It seems to be very doom and gloom on Reddit, but I suspect that may not necessarily be the case. So every now and then I do my own state of World of Warships. I want to say I've done it the past couple years. And every year I find that the player population has pretty much stayed the same. In fact, we're slightly increasing on the North American side. Now, I don't know if that's the case right now with carriers coming out. I really haven't seen concurrent players recently, but word on the street is it's right around 12,000. And it's been 12,000 concurrent players for a while. And 12,000 concurrent players is good. It's actually really good, because if you look at a AAA first-person shooter like Battlefield 1, which has been out for a year and a half, on PC, their max is 12,000 concurrent players worldwide. This 12,000 that I'm talking about is in the NA alone. And North America has fewer players than any other region in the world. You look at Russia, and I think they're like 30 or 40,000, something ridiculous like that. EU has more concurrent players than we do. So as of right now, 3+ years into it, World of Warships, in my opinion, is very healthy. Now, whether or not the recent changes we've had to carriers affect that, we don't know yet. We'll have to wait a month or 2 to see what the results are. Personally, I don't think it's going to affect the player base that much. Players might leave for a month and then decide whether or not to come back, but overall, I don't think it's going to affect that much. 5 years and beyond is a little harder to project. I know World of Tanks has been out for 5 years, or longer, so that's where Quick Baby was coming from. The one thing World of Warships has going for it is the fact that there is no other game out there like it, except for War Thunder. And War Thunder is very similar to World of Warships and its North American concurrent player numbers, right around 12,000. So outside of World of Warships, what other World War II warship games do you have out there? You have none, except War Thunder, of course. There's no other games out there like World of Warships. And because of that, that gives the game some lasting power. Now, you could probably say the same for World of Tanks. I really don't know if there are other tank games out there outside of War Thunder. I suspect there might be a few, but I'm not positive. Warships are a little different, and they're very, very niche. And I think that's why the player base really hasn't changed that much. You've got that core base of gamers that love the game, love history, love World War II, and they're going to stick with it no matter what, because there's nothing else out there they can play. Then you've got other players that come and then they go, and they're replaced by new players that see it, and they're like, oh, a free-to-play World War II game with ships? I'm in. They play it for a year or two, and they go. But the numbers really don't ever change that much. Yes, we've increased our base a little bit, but we really haven't decreased, and it hasn't been giant gains we've made. And that's not a bad thing. World of Warships is very healthy right now. It's got a healthy player base. And yes, there's always doom and gloom out there. There's been doom and gloom out there. There's been doom and gloom for the past several years. But despite this, the game's dying. The game hasn't died. The game continues to thrive. We continue to get new content, whether it be the aircraft carrier rework. Yes, and I get not everybody likes that. But it's still something that keeps the game alive. It keeps the game going. If submarines ever get introduced to the game in the future, the same thing will happen. We'll have the same issues. We'll have the same players hating it. But it's a new addition to the game that draws in new players and helps build the base, even though we might shed some players in the process. So 3 years in, I think we're healthy. 5 years out, I don't know what it's going to be like, but I suspect the numbers aren't going to change too much, and we're still going to have that core base of players, and the game will be healthy enough for what wargaming wants. Lastly, I'm going to do some mean tweets too. Of course, these aren't really tweets. These are just questions, and this question came from Kingpin Gaming, and there was some definite snark in this, and if you get featured in this section, you're not going to get a CCT container. I guess it's a reward to you for having some form of snark, but he asks, why do you give advice to average players about clan battles despite never having been a part of a good competitive team? Well, my answer to that is, when Tiger Woods was the #1 golf player in the world, why did he take advice from Butch Harmon, who was obviously not as good a player as him? If you're in college and you're learning from professors with no real-world experience, but have only been teaching in classroom setting, why do you even bother? Why do we have generals and admirals that create strategy for conflicts that they've never been a part of? Admirals learn how to conduct warfare, and they might never even have been in a war. So my advice is to Kingpin Gaming, try not to confuse skill with experience and wisdom. They're very separate things. And some of the best teachers in the world might not necessarily be the most skilled teachers in the world. There's a big difference there. And everybody plays clan battles for different reasons. I play just to kick back, have fun, and hang out with the other CCs I play with. We have a good time. We win some, we lose some. But winning's not everything. And that's some life advice right there. Anyhow, guys, thanks for coming out for this first edition of Mail Buoy. If I featured your question in here, please be sure to hit me up on Facebook where you ask these questions. I will DM you a code for a CCT container. And we'll continue doing these in the future. I enjoy this. I like it a lot. And also thank you Jarkob117 for your Scharnhorst gameplay. If you've got some gameplay out there that you feel is worthy of being featured, by all means, please send it to me, NoZoupForYou@gmail.com. You can also send your questions there, and I might answer them in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I hope you have a phenomenal week, month, year. I'm out.